Okay, so all that being said, Marvel's Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classic's been announced, and that's super awesome. It's what everyone's kind of been waiting for, for obviously for years. There's the whole free MVC2 campaign, blah 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 blah. So the question on everyone's minds rising is naturally, what does Capcom? What do we need to do to make sure this is not only is this a success, but what do we need to do to make sure that there's a future with Marvel and Capcom? Obviously, I'm talking, the elephant in the room, MVC4. What needs to happen here? So the best way to look at what it needs to do is to look back at past games and past game sales and kind of gauge where things are going here. And I'm going to sort of try to break this down for everyone because everyone's kind of been asking. It's a fair question, honestly. Like, what are we looking at here? What do we need to do to make MVC4 reality? Okay, so again, the big one is, how do we make sure the sales are good? How do we make sure Marvel vs. Capcom Arcade Classic Collection is good? What are we looking at numbers wise here? Okay, so what is the best selling Marvel vs. Capcom entry ever? And the answer probably surprised you. And of course, it was the one image I didn't use. But it's Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Surprise, surprise. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite technically is their best-selling Marvel vs. Capcom game ever, at 2.2 million sales. So if you wanted to say, like, what is the absolute highest bar Marvel vs. Capcom has ever reached, it's 2.2 million sales. There's a catch here, though, and that is just because this game got to 2.2 million doesn't necessarily mean it was a success. Two reasons. One is there's a weird sort of shadiness to the way Capcom counts their numbers, and how, like, you'll have a game from the 360 and they will claim it sold 100,000 units. Everything always goes up 100,000 units in Capcom's numbers. It could be Resident Evil 5 Gold Edition for Xbox 360, and they'll say last quarter we sold 100,000 copies of that game. Sure, you did, but more to the point, this game was like $20 or less months after it came out. And most of these sales probably came from Steam, and they probably came when the game was like $10 to $15. So basically, this has a number, but it's a number that's sort of a fool's gold, where almost none of these sales happened at full price. In fact, probably half or less of these sales were full price. So it's a bit of a fool's gold to sit there like, oh, this is the best-selling Marvel game. Kind of. What's up, Gamma Gantle? Thank you very much, dude. Mr. The, Sir Goldwatch, Multipack 3D7, Nato, Potato Man, and A's They're 90. So that being said, what is the second best-selling? Well, here's another one that might surprise you. Not that one, actually. MVC3 Vanilla is at the same number, exactly 2.2 million sales. So Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and this, my dear, friends, this is actually closer to, they probably sold most of these at full price or closer to full price. So this is your Marvel Infinite, Marvel 3 Vanilla are your two best-selling Marvel vs. Capcom games ever. So again, this is your ceiling. Your ceiling here of like, how many do we need to sell? This would sort of be like, this would be the incredible part. Now these are full-priced $60 big games, right? And sort of to follow that up, then the question becomes, okay, so what did Ultimate sell, right? And Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom on PS360 sold 1.2 million, which a whole million less than Vanilla Marvel 3. Now, let's remember Marvel 3 and Ultimate Marvel 3 came out in the exact same year. in 2011. So Capcom was asking people to buy into a whole new version of a game the same year it came out. And it was cheap, but it was cheaper. But yeah, so there's a whole million less that Ultimate sold versus Marvel 3 Vanilla, which also goes to show you how important sort of the casual market for this thing is that, like, from the fighting game community perspective, there was no Marvel 3 Vanilla. It basically didn't exist. It was Ultimate Marvel 3. It's still Ultimate Marvel 3. But from a sales perspective, Marvel 3 Vanilla was the best-selling one. But here's the strange thing. When Marvel Infinite got announced, they announced a brand new version of Ultimate Marvel 3 for PS4, Xbone, and Steam. And lo and behold, the Steam sales, along with the PS4 and Xbone, are 1.8 million. They sold 600,000 copies more of Ultimate MVC 3 on PS4, Xbone, and PC than they did on PS360. Which shows you the legacy this game had, because this came years later on a different set of hardware, and this time including PC, and lo and behold, the sales were actually even better than before. So that's definitely something you should all be thinking about. But again, we are talking about a collection here. We're not talking about a new game. And these were, other than Marvel Ultimate Marvel 3, which is a single game re-release, these are not new games. So what's the best-selling? We take this away. What do we have then? And that is, let's go all the way back in time to Marvel versus Capcom 2 on PS360. 1.4 million. 1.4 million. This is the ceiling, by the way, of Marvel 2. This is as much as Marvel 2 has sold ever on any version, and that's the PS3 360 version. 1.4 million. So just for reference, the Dreamcast version, the PS2 version, and the original Xbox version didn't even crack 1 million. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 didn't crack 1 million, but years and years later, on the PS3 and 360 combined, 1.4 million for that online version of Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And this is where I say the base needs to be, because this was just Marvel vs. Capcom 2 alone, just re-released on PS3 360 with online gameplay. Marvel vs. Capcom Collection, on the other hand, not only has Marvel 2 online, but it has Marvel 1, and it has X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Street Fighter, Coda, Marvel Superheroes Punisher. You've got a lot of games, and they all have online, and they have Japanese and American ROMs. So I'm going to tell you right now, the ceiling you need to beat this. We need to get Marvel vs. Capcom Collection. We need to get this to 1.5. This needs to hit 1.5 sales. 1.5 million sales. If PC, Switch, and PS4 alone, all three of them can't hit 1.5, that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign, because the game industry has absolutely grown since the PS3 360 release of Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Not to mention, this would also include games from the Marvel vs. Capcom Origins collection. And if you're wondering about Marvel vs. Capcom Origins on the PS3 and 360, that didn't even hit 1 million sales. They were under 1 million. And that was a collection that included Marvel Superheroes and Marvel vs. Capcom 1 with online. That didn't even hit 1 million sales. That didn't even hit 1 million. So where we're going is we need to hit 1.5. If we hit 1.5, I think then it's like, okay, we have a success. That means you have a sort of built-in audience that will show up for Marvel 2. You know, it's a step above Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on PS3 360, and it's showing enough good faith on you know, hey, if you put everything on there, you put the entirety of Marvel vs. Capcom in a collection online, this is what shows. Now there is some party poopers. I think it's a mistake. I think it's they're really shooting themselves in the foot A little, not shooting themselves. This is maybe a bit drastic, but they're really. It sucks that that's not on Xbox. I think leaving Xbox out of the party here is a bit. Ugh, that you're hurting your chances of making this the big success it needs to be. It's really unfortunate, honestly, because even if Xbox only accounted for 20% of the sales, you know, that's 250,000 copies, you know, that could go towards pushing this number up. You know, it's really unfortunate that this is not on Xbox, and I hope a remedy can be found from Microsoft's ends. I hope they can reach out and make it happen, because we need all the help we can get. The other big party pooper here, and I have no idea why this is, but not having crossplay on the Marvel vs. Capcom Final Collection is bizarre. And again, it's putting an obstacle in its path. Leaving Xbox out, not having crossplay, these are some obstacles for this game that suck. But again, we are looking at 1.5 being that magic number we need to hit. Now, for context, because I think it's important to have that as well. This, by the way, these are not even the best-selling retro collection of fighting games. Now, if you're wondering about the Capcom fighting game collection, the best-selling collection that Capcom has, by the way, is actually Street Fighter 30th anniversary. 3.1 million sales. Now, if we can get Marvel vs. Capcom Collection to 2, then we're basically okay. We're really close to the best that Marvel vs. Capcom has ever been. We're really close. Like, probably close enough to the fact that, like, this is probably like a tip, like the scales start tipping at 2 million. If you get to 3.1, Marvel vs. 4 gets greenlit the next day. So if you wanted pie in the sky, if you or to use a Disneyland phrase, if you want to blue sky this, you want your if you want your chances for Marvel vs. Capcom, they drastically go up if you get to 3 or 3.1 million sales. But again, like, we are hurdling no crossplay and no Xbox, so our chances drastically go down. Maybe not drastic, but yes, this collection, which by the way was also on Switch, 3.1 million sales. Yeah, 3.1 launch. And here's the thing. Here's a good clarification here. I'm not going to say this needs to be in the first month. This needs to be in the first year. In 1 year, Marvel vs. Capcom Collection needs to get to 1.5 in 1 year. In 12 months, it needs to get to 1.5. That's the goal, because that will ensure that there's at least talks will still happen. Talks will still happen between them. There's a possibility at 1.5. Under 1.5 and it'll probably just be like, if it's 1 or 1.25, it'll probably look that was a nice success. Again, I don't think this game's going to have a huge budget. It's not about, is this game profitable? It's about, like, is this showing there that there's an audience for more Marvel vs. Capcom? So 1.25, and then I don't know if anything happens after that. If anything, at this, when looking at it like from that angle, I would say that 1.1 to 1.25 is like, that was a nice success, good working together. Maybe something could come up in the future. 1.5, and then we're starting, like, talks are starting to happen. You get to 2 million, and the scales start tipping. You get to 2 million, and you're like, okay, now we can actually start. Now we can really start talking about, like, yeah, maybe we should do, because again, it is a collection of really old games that have been available and re-released multiple times. So if you get this to 2 million, you can use that data, go to Marvel and say, an old collection of games that we've re-released previously many times over in the past, and we re-released it again, and it did this many sales. There's a huge audience waiting for a brand new game. because a brand new game would guarantee even more than that. And by the way, again, if you get to 2.2 on Marvel vs. Capcom Collection, then you're tied for first for anything Marvel vs. Capcom ever. And then again, if you want to go pie in the sky, if you get to, you know, again, if we get here, if we get to 2.2, we're beating Infinite, we're beating Marvel 3 Vanilla. But again, pie in the sky, you know, if you can get to 3.1 million, Marvel 4 gets greenlit the next day. If you get to 2.5, Marvel vs. Capcom 4 becomes an inevitability. It becomes Thanos. It becomes inevitable. Even if you get to 2.5, you get to 3.1. Ho diddly damn! It's happening. It's happening. Like, it's happening now. So there's your sort of like baseline where things kind of need to be, and just for reference, chat. In 1 year, Street Fighter 6 has sold 3.3, by the way. I just want to point that out. Street Fighter 6 in 1 year has sold 3.3 million copies, which, that's very good. It's not phenomenal, but it's very good. So, just so you know, like, what has Street Fighter 6 sold in a year off all of its goodwill? 3.3 million. Street Fighter 4 Vanilla, just Street Fighter 4 Vanilla on PS3 360 sold 3.6. That was before Super Street Fighter 4, and that's not counting any other version of Street Fighter 4. Just the first initial release of Street Fighter 4 Vanilla on PS3 360 sold 3.6, which is actually better than Street Fighter 6 did in its first year, but c'est la vie. And if you want to know what the best-selling Street Fighter game is, it's actually 5, 7.5 million copies, but Street Fighter 5 spent most of its life for $10. I think I bought it for $10. Might even got it for free at some point on like a month's free month or whatever. No, I think I got it for like 15 or something. So as far as what I think it's hard to say what's going to happen with this one, because it has gotten mainstream media attention, which is great. I think I can confidently say this will probably hit 1 million. I think being on PC is going to really help this get to 1 million, and we really want to get to 1.5. We want to beat Marvel 2 online. We really want to beat that, and we actually. Here's the thing. I think what we really want to do is we really want to get to 2 million. I think we really want to get to 2 million. I think we want to get past 1.5. I think we really want to get to 2. Because I think at 2, that means you're pushing Marvel's ass off the fence towards like going towards a new game. But I think like 1.5 is like the minimum right there. The collection, at Best Buy, the pre-order for the collection is $50. So, again, this is all the Marvel games Capcom games online. I don't want to hear any whining about $50. Just buy it if you want. If you want to see Marvel 4, you need to buy this. Straight up. $12 span across 3 platforms. I think the target should be roughly 3 million. That's probably not going to happen. Guardian, because it's never happened. Marvel vs. Capcom has never sold above 2.2 million. So a collection of old games hitting 3, that's not going to happen. So again, let's all pitch in. Let's do our part. You want to see Marvel vs. Capcom 4, you want to see a future with these two companies, let's all pitch in, let's all buy it. I'm probably going to buy 2. I'll buy a Switch and probably PC version. Again, if you want for preservation's sake, you probably want a physical Switch version. Why? Because the PS4 version will disc rot. The Switch is a solid state cartridge. It's going to last for forever. So if you want like a physical version of this game that will pretty much last forever, get a Switch version. PS4, the disc will rot. So Switch physical, Steam digital. That's where I'm at. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, about this. Yeah, and let's get Marvel vs. Capcom Collection to sell. Let's get it to sell 1.5. Let's get it to 2. Let's shoot for 2. Hope for 1.5 at least. Shoot for 2, and then if we can get it above 2, we're in good. We're getting a new one. Do your part, chat.